Hi, I'm Andy Acton.
And I'm Chris Strevens.
This is Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast.
Wow.
That was an episode and a half, wasn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. I must admit, I feel marginally exhausted.
She certainly has got through a lot. Is doing a lot at present, and
Yeah.
I think there's still quite a lot more to come as well.
Yeah, full on. I mean, in a really nice way. You know, just a lovely lady. It's just like, God, flip. But
Yeah,
there's a
and there
lot
seems to
going
be a
on, isn't there?
real
Wow.
deep enjoyment in what she's doing as well. But I think the bit that for me is a real lesson for everybody to keep going, never give up.
Be
when she
relentless.
when she tells that story about trying to get her VT place, foundation dentist place, and it wasn't working, and then people have to listen to find out how it fixed itself over a pint of beer, but it did resolve itself.
And also her great passion and empowerment for the empowerment of women in dentistry. I thought that came across really clear, in the fact of I just thought it was full on session and exhausting, and there's a lot going on. She is, that sort of classic, what's that, plate juggler, or the plate spinner or juggler.
Oh, yeah.
She is there with the juggling and spinners of the world.
I think people will relate a lot.
Definitely. Yeah, because she was relatable, wasn't she? It was just honest, genuine. No, brilliant.
No, it's really good. Really enjoyable. Good. Yeah. So here we are. We are back for another episode, Christopher. How are you doing?
Yeah. Well, it's brilliant. It's a little bit unusual though, Andrew, because you are not to my left.
I'm not.
This is like a bit of I feel a bit like Ant and Dec without Dec or Ant. It's like a bit weird, really. It's how many of these have we done? 170 or something?
We've done 170 odd, and it's. I think we had a couple of occasions where we've not been together, but it is unusual. It is unusual.
I'm going to keep looking over my shoulder.
I was going to say it feels slightly odd. I should be looking to my right.
Yeah, it's going to be quite weird, really.
It will.
I feel like Ant without Dec.
We'll see how we go.
I don't know which one's the short and the big one, but anyway.
We'll see how we go.
But we are here.
We are, and this week, yet another fabulous guest. They keep coming, don't they? We are so lucky and privileged.
No pressure, Sarika. No pressure at all.
No, not at all. So this week, we have Sarika Shah. Sarika is a dentist and also principal of the Platinum Dental Care in Canary Wharf, London, but also starting a new project called Flourish as a Female, which we'll find out a bit more about as we go through our conversation. Hello, Sarika. How are you?
Yeah, really well. I'm so excited to be on here today with both of you. So thank you for having me.
No,
we are so excited that you slotted us in, considering you tell us you're disappearing later on today.
I am.
So,
I'm all packed, ready to fly out this evening for my Christmas holidays. So yes, you're the last two and the most important people on my schedule today.
Oh, bless you. Right.
Well done. Well done.
Right. If that's not going to put you to the top of the rankings, nothing is.
I'm looking forward to our conversation because I've met you and your husband Rishi, who's also involved in the business, so many times at different events. But the nature of dental events is it's very kind of soundbitey. You get to talk to somebody for a few minutes and then you kind of get dragged off in another direction or you talk to somebody else. And one of the beauties of a podcast is the long form nature of being able to have, 35, 40, 45 minutes to talk about you, your life, what you've done, how it's going. So that's what we're going to do today, which I'm looking forward to. So to start with, can we kick off with how your parents set you up? When you were young, how did they set you up to be the future person? When you grew up in Kenya and moved to the UK when you were 16, but what did that look like? What was the childhood like for the young Sarika?
Gosh, you know what? You always reflect back on your childhood, don't you? And I have to say, I'm really privileged because I had the most incredible childhood. Not only did I get to grow up in a fantastic country and I got to explore the outdoors so much. I had freedom in my childhood to go out and play with my neighbors, outside and enjoy the weather. We had good weather all year round. Fantastic schooling and great teachers. So, it was generally such a brilliant childhood to have, and I have such great memories. But you know what? My parents, they played such a huge part in who I am today. And I can, I can't thank them enough because, parents really influence, they influence you in those younger years, don't they?
Yeah.
And I was really lucky to have a father who loved his sciences. He was an entrepreneur, always came up with exciting ideas, loved science and space and mathematics. And so we always had interesting conversations around that. But, I saw him set up his businesses. And I have such distinct memories of being there, especially with his second business and how excited he was to set that up. I watched him work really, really hard. I watched him build his business from scratch. And I have memories of us, my brother and I being really young and being quite involved, with the business side of things as well. And really trying to be part of that excitement and part of that growth as well for him. So
when did you come to the UK?
I came to the UK when I was 16, so straight after my GCSEs.
Right, and what year was that? I'm not saying. I'm trying to find how old you are.
1998.
Oh wow, okay. And why did why did you come here? Why did you your parents?
And so they had this exciting opportunity for me, and they said, "Look, this is going to be life changing for you." And remember that I was 16. I think I just turned 16, or I was probably 15 at the time when that opportunity came up, and so it was a really big decision for me to make. But there was something in me deep down inside, and I just wanted to experience something new. And
so all on your own. This is you came all on your own.
Can you imagine? And this is a completely different country,
nuts.
coming, from a developing country in East Africa, all the way to England. I'd only been to England once before in my life when I was 7 years old. So it wasn't like I knew anything about England either. So it was a really big jump. But yeah, a fantastic opportunity.
When your parents told you and they presented it as an exciting opportunity, what was your immediate reaction, your instinctive response when they told you it was an exciting opportunity? Did you think this sounds crazy and terrifying, or did you jump on it quite quickly?
Do you know what? I have a distinct memory of this, and I think it was that excitement bubbling up inside me. And I remember feeling excitement and scared at the same time. It was like a bit of both. It's like that feeling that you have that I felt so many times since then as well. Like, when the business opportunity came for the practice, when I've been standing on that platform just before I have to bungee jump,
I was going to say it's bungee jumping, isn't it? It's that sort of ooh.
So, it's that fear of excitement, the thrill, and the fear all at once. So yeah, it was brilliant.
And what was it like when you landed and went to school? Was it like horrendous? Was it really good? Was it a bit unpleasant? How did it sort of work?
No, it was great. So what it was, we arrived in England. It was in like late summer, and my results for my GCSEs still hadn't come out, and the position was all dependent on the results that I was going to get in my GCSEs. So I remember going to the high street, and my dad, because it was scratch cards again, there was no WhatsApp, so we had a scratch card, and we were all huddled up in this red phone booth on the high street. And I remember my dad calling my school, and he had this piece of paper and a pencil, and I could hear all the results being called out because he would repeat them. Obviously, I couldn't hear on the phone because he was on the phone, but he'd repeat the results, and he'd just be writing them down, and we were just ecstatic when I got the results and I made it. And the night before, they did say to me, they said I had the whole, my bag with my uniform in there, which had cost a fortune at the time. And my dad said to me, well, both my parents said to me, they said, listen, don't cut the labels off the uniform yet, because it all depends on what you get tomorrow, and then if you get it, otherwise we'll have to return it. And it's
I love your cash-conscious father.
We've got a draft eBay listing waiting for them.
Exactly.
I tell you what, I've got this lovely image of like that. How many, 3 or 4 of you crammed into the phone box with almost like one, like one of those films where there's someone's like giving out a code, and it's like English literature. A. Oh, it's probably a really nice way, in a sort of bizarre way, apart from just getting a bit of paper. Does that, because you're all sharing the experience.
Exactly. And, they've been such a big part of my life until then, and a big part of my success, I think, with that fantastic upbringing I had as well, and you don't realize how people or parents have contributed to you until you're much older and you reflect back,
Yeah.
and you see exactly how they've influenced you, So it was great. It was great. And just to answer your question, Chris, I mean, going up to the school was in Kent, and it's in a stunning location. And walking to my boarding house, and it was a sixth form boarding house, all international students, so everyone in my year was new, which was a great positive. So we were all there, all new, all ready to make friends, all from different countries. So we
Which is
were
great.
experiencing the same thing, which was fantastic. And I'm still in touch with so many of my friends from school as well. We made lifelong friendships. So it was a great part of my life.
I tell you what, it shows, doesn't it? I just think about it. It shows how much really technology has changed. If anything, that's a real simple one, isn't it? That's only, what was that, 98, 26 years?
26 years, not that long.
And you were in a
really.
phone box.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
You were in a phone box with a FIFA phone. I mean, that's not actually that long, is it?
Yeah. And
Sarika, when you came over to go to boarding school, you were 16, you were going to do your A-levels. Did you already know at this time that you had chosen subjects to be a dentist? Was that already predetermined?
Absolutely not, because there is not a single person for generations in my family on either side that has gone into a career that has anything to do with healthcare. Not a single person. So I was the first to make that jump, and
you're an exception.
Yeah, and this was thank you. It was really, for me, I'd been surrounded by everyone and influenced by everyone that was in business or something to do with economics or accounts or, but mostly entrepreneurs and business. It was something so different for me. And the subjects that I chose, I actually did the International Baccalaureate. So I had 6 subjects, and the subjects I initially chose had nothing to do with dentistry at all. I had to change some of my subjects halfway through. But it was really, I think, teachers at the school, when I had open conversations with them, and I said to them that, what, this is what I've been pushed towards, like influenced around, but I'm not sure if I really thrive in these subjects. And I'm so glad that I could have those open conversations with them, because it was one of my lead teachers, especially in my boarding house. She was the one that brought it up, and she said that, Sarika, you look like, you're doing really well in your chemistry, your physics, your biology, and maybe you should focus on those subjects. And have you thought about a career in this sector?
Wow.
Have you thought about healthcare? So that's where it all started. And I was looking at various options then, because suddenly there wasn't one thing. So I was looking at medicine, I was looking at dentistry, I was looking at pharmacy, optometry. And what she said is the best thing to do is go and get some work experience. So she took me to, the pharmacist, the optometrist, the dentist, and the doctor on the high street. And she said she arranged some work, work shadowing. And
that's brilliant.
Yeah, I will never forget the experience I had with the high street dentist. He sold it to me. He was absolutely brilliant. And, I feel like I learned so much from that experience, but I just found it so exciting. And I remember him saying to me that, dentistry is such a great profession for a woman. It's such a great profession for a woman. And, you have so much choice when you come into dentistry. There's so many areas that you can grow into. And I think that did it for me. And then, that's how it happened. I actually changed my UCAS form right at the end, and then applied for dentistry as well.
It's that lovely thing, isn't it? It's lovely to hear one person. If that person hadn't have said that to you, would you have actually, it's fascinating. What's that sliding doors moment, isn't it?
Exactly.
And it's quite interesting, isn't it? That's probably that person you've been able to say thank you. But there's quite often people that have had that influence on us that we haven't been able to say thank you to. It's fascinating. One person could say one thing, steer you down one path, and then that's the path you follow because they brought something you never thought about. So brilliant. That's a really lovely story.
And I think that's the power of communication, isn't it? You often have no idea how you can just drop a little comment, and it could either be positive or negative, or you might have said it neutrally. It might have been received in a positive or negative way. and it has an impact on that person.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of people we talk to that go, yeah, I wanted to prove a teacher wrong. You know, they said I'd amount to nothing, and I wanted to prove that person wrong. And that teacher may not necessarily have even given a second thought to the comment that they made, but that in you know, you flip that coin over, and that teacher gave you the idea and went on to arrange work experience, and you had a positive experience with the dentist on the high street. And the next thing is you've changed your UCAS form.
But this is it. You know what happened is my environment changed completely. And we don't realize how much our environment influences the choices, the way we think, and our actions and our decisions. And my environment completely switched, where, again, not having mobile phones, I wasn't, you know, I'd speak to my parents for 15 minutes once every 2 weeks, you know, from a phone booth. And, you know, and so suddenly all my teachers, my new friends, they were the ones that were influencing me. They were the ones, you know, that I was learning from, and they became a big pivotal part of my life at that specific time. And really that conversation as well, we were just having a cup of tea with this specific teacher in my boarding house. And she said, well, how's everything going? Are you missing your parents? It's a very casual conversation. And then it went on to, well, how are you finding school? And, you know, and I said, and I went into this whole conversation, and then that's where all of this stemmed from. So it's really interesting how life can literally change just from one conversation.
One interaction with someone can make a massive difference, can't it?
Absolutely.
So you're in boarding school in Kent, but you then choose to go to dental school in Manchester.
Yes.
So you then go to the other end of the country. And Kent and Manchester, they're quite different. And I know England isn't a big country, so arguably it's a small geographic space, but they are quite different. What was the thought process? Accents. Yes, and weather. So what was the thought process around going to Manchester?
Well, you know, you've got to remember that at this point in my life is just a big adventure for me. You know, I made this like massive jump, this massive shift, and, you know, the world's my oyster. I can just go anywhere. Boarding school completely changed me. You know, I remember my father saying to me the first time I went back on holiday, he said, you left as a girl and you've come back a lady. And, you know, it completely changed me. I became so independent, where I was completely reliant on my family for everything in Kenya. You know, I didn't do anything in Kenya, not even like, you know, I didn't do my laundry, didn't wash dishes, didn't do anything. And I had to then suddenly learn how to do everything over those 2 years. So I grew up really quickly. And I just realized, well, do you know what? The world's my oyster. I can do whatever I want. And I applied to a variety of universities, London, King's College being one of them, Bristol, Cardiff, and Manchester. And I remember going for interviews for all of them. But when I went to Manchester, it was the cab driver that sold it to me, from the station all the way to university. Do you know what? He was so lovely. He was so chatty. He was so happy. I just loved the vibe of the university. Wow. The fact that it wasn't fully campus, it was part city, part campus. And everyone was just friendly. Everyone was really welcoming. And for me, that was really important. It was really important that I felt comfortable where I went. And I just thought, you know, having a look around and at all the universities, I thought this is going to be the best fit for me. But again, it was a matter of, am I going to get in or not? So again, we were at crossroads. And I remember being in Kenya on holiday when I got the acceptance for Manchester. So I was over the moon.
At least you didn't have a bag full of school uniforms.
Exactly. But still, it was, you know, I was an international student, you know, so international school fees for university.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was all like, well, if you don't get in, then, you know, it's coming, you know, back to Kenya again. And I had to keep my options open, just as I did for schools. I had to keep my options open for universities in Kenya as well. And maybe
So did you apply for
Australia?
Did you apply for dental in Kenya?
I hadn't yet, but I was looking at universities. I was looking at universities. I did my SATs. I applied to the US as well. I applied to UPenn. And I was looking at universities in Australia as well. So I wanted to keep all my options open.
You were hedging your bets, weren't you?
Well, you that
keeping
sense
your
of
options
adventure
open,
from Kenya to Manchester, looking in America and Australia,
Yeah.
and then your sense of adventure continues, because when you finish dental school in Manchester, you then do VT over in Norwich.
I did.
So you really are bouncing around the whole country, and
So
you stayed there for quite a while.
You
didn't
either really like train journeys or you like driving.
This is it. I'm like the nomad, exploring as I go along. But yeah, just yeah, and that's a whole nother story of how I got my VT job as well. Do you want to know?
Yeah, love to.
So, again, just being an international student, that I would always get the lowest preference. So I'd always be at the bottom of the list in terms of acceptance. Yeah, because the rule was that they all VT trainers had to have a set number of interviews, but they had to give British citizen graduates first preference. So and I needed a visa. I needed a working visa with whoever took me on. So, I had to apply to maybe 4 or 5 times as many jobs. And this is 3 or 4 months before my final exams. And then trot around the country, all around the country to go for interviews. And at that time, I don't know what it is like now, but it was job shops at the time. So each deanery had a job shop where all the VT trainers would come in and they'd do like mini interviews and you can swap your CVs. And
speed dating.
Exactly. It was literally like that.
Dental speed dating. How about that?
It really was. So I had to go to every single job shop. So yeah, and at that time, again, no one accepted CVs and cover letters through email. I had to print every single one out in the library.
And you're
at
coming
university.
up to your finals, aren't you? Do you saying that's timing with your finals as well?
Yeah, it was about 3 or 4 months, probably Jan, Feb time that year, 2006, and then I went to the East Anglia Deanery job shop, and I'd been around to everywhere. And I thought at that point, I really thought, okay, I'm not getting a job. I was ready to call my dad and say, I'm really not getting a job. I'm done, because I think it was one of the last job shops as well. And I said, I thought, okay. And I was wearing, these really high heels. I was done. I was exhausted. I just wanted to focus on my exams. And it was like in a hotel, and they had like a hotel bar. So I thought, right, I need to have a beer at this stage. So I went to the bar and ordered a pint. And
I like your style. I
thought it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm done. So and I had to go back to London and then Manchester again. So and then there was this gentleman standing next to me at the bar, and he just ordered a pint, and we just started talking, and he said, and he said, yeah, I'm a VT trainer as well. I'm based out in Norwich. And then we started talking. I said, oh, well, I'm looking for a job. And he said, well, it just happens to be that I had accepted someone, but she's accepted a job somewhere else. And then he said to me, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, I'm free. And he said, well, why don't you come over to Norwich and I'll show you around? And he showed me around. There was a group of practices, showed me around, and then took me out for a pub lunch. And over another pint, we signed my letter of intent. And that was it. And he offered me the job.
God, that's a lovely story. What about chance meeting in a bar over a pint?
There you go, right?
In your high heels. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. If you're listening.
Never skip the bar. But also it just shows, doesn't it, that it's never over till it's over. You were probably feeling a bit despondent and you kept applying and nothing was happening. And then you got a break. And as a life lesson for you, but for other people listening to this, to have that kind of tenacity to just keep going. You never know when that break's going to come.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what.
We talk about resilience, don't we?
Yeah. And hard work always pays off. Definitely, in my experience, I've had to work. I had to do the extra bit at every stage, of my life. And it's just created really good habits. And I really believe that even if it's not worked in that moment, it will pay off down the line. You will get that payoff at some point. So, never stop putting the hard work in, never stop believing in yourself. And, don't completely give up, always look at other options. There's always something out there.
Yeah. So you did your VT there. You were there for 7 years. You then did your MSc in restorative dentistry at Eastman.
Yeah.
I'm interested. Obviously, you come from a long line of entrepreneurs and business people in your family, yet you're now doubling down big time on your clinical learning. Did you, in those early days, do anything to support your learning and understanding of the business of dentistry at all, or was it purely clinical?
No, it was purely clinical at that stage. And I remember having lots of conversations with my father. And I said, do you know what? Like, I really find the business of dentistry interesting. The great thing was where I was working at my VT practice, there was 4 partners, and I had a really good relationship with all of those 4 partners. Strangely enough, mostly because I'm a golfer and I play golf and they'd have golfing events. And I get to have
Okay.
these fantastic conversations about the practice and the business side of the practice on the golf course with them. Um,
Wow.
and um, and I said to my father, I said, I'm really interested in the business side of things. But he always said to me, everything at the right time. He said, you've got to make sure that you master your clinical skills. And you've got to make sure that you're consistent with your clinical skills. Because the last thing you want is to invest in a practice and then realize that you don't have the skills to support
Mm.
yourself on the clinical side. And the other thing he said to me as well is that you also then have to master the other skills. And really, this is where I learned about leadership. And he said that you have to learn how to be a really good people person and a good leader. And you've got to start
He's a wise
practicing
man,
from
your
now.
father, isn't he, Philip?
Yeah.
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 And he
Mr.
said, start practicing from now, work with your nurses, work with the team within your practices, and, really hone in on your leadership skills, and then slowly start to understand the business side of things, the finance, how to, build relationships with people. So, he started to, it's what some people call skill stacking. And he didn't use
Yeah.
that phrase, but that's what he was trying to do with me. It's like, build your skills one thing at a time and stack your skills until it doesn't have to be the perfect time, but until it's the right time for you to then start your practice. And he said that you need to do this on your own as well. And I knew what he meant. He meant financially that, he said, you need to earn enough to then build enough of a pot to then invest in your practice. So, and I'm so glad he did that because it's mine. It's my own. I never had to ask him for money for it. And I'm really proud that I did it on my own.
Is he still? He's still with us? Is he?
Yes, he
Or
is.
he's
He is.
still alive? Yeah, I bet you he's proud as he sort of.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at the things you've achieved, I'd imagine it's a bit like well done.
Oh, absolutely. And I talk about my father a lot, but my mum had such a huge influence on me as well. She's very artistic, but it's her high achiever mindset that I think she had, that I feel like it's the influence, or I've inherited it genetically. I don't know what it is, but it was that side of it which was so important. I think, with the other skills that I've collected along the way,
Brilliant.
for me to have the right type of mindset as well. So she's a very strong woman, and she had such a huge influence on me.
Yeah. You touched on leadership. And in 2017, you bought Platinum Dental Care in Canary Wharf. Was it always your plan that you would be a principal one day? Was that always where this was heading? Was it like, I enjoy working with people, I enjoy, elevating them, empowering them, but to do that well, I really have to be a principal? Was it something that was a natural extension of where you got to in your career?
Yeah, interesting question.
Do you know what? I think so. I think I always wanted to own my own business. I think that's what it was. And I think being a dentist, I think being a practice principal was the first step. I think that the skills you learn being a dentist, you can do so much now in our field, right? You can own a business that is dentally related, but isn't necessarily a practice. And I think you can do so much. But the business side of things, I just found really interesting. It was in my blood. And I just found it really interesting. And I never went down that career pathway. But I went into like dentistry. But the great thing is that you can be an entrepreneur and a dentist at the same time. And I'm so glad that high street dentist, he almost kind of said to me that you can do so much with this career. And he was so right, that there are so many avenues that you can take and still have fulfillment, still feel, and still see success. So I think it's
It's
a great
interesting,
experience.
isn't it? You sort of, from a lot of the people we talk to, you sort of have this. Um, that you either can be a dentist who becomes a business person, or a business person who becomes a dentist. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah.
so I sort of get the feeling you'd probably have been a business person,
Yeah.
irrespective of what it was, but you happen to find yourself
Qualifying
in
dentistry.
Yeah,
dentistry.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing is that
Yeah.
there's so many aspects to business, right? And I just feel that to be an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have to be strong in every area. So my strengths were that I'm very creative, I'm very innovative, I love people, I love building relationships, and that's where my strengths lie. On the finance side, not so much. I'm so glad I say changed my subjects at, at the international best advice I was given, but not my strong suit, you know. And you know, we'll talk about how we've kind of developed platinum with my husband, and how we're such a great team. But you know, I just a message to people out there that you need to have the passion, you need to have a vision, you need to have set goals, but you don't need to be good at everything. Yes, there's key elements that you need to know about, and you need to have those foundations, so that whatever you build doesn't crumble. But I think you can learn skills along the way, so you don't need to be ace at everything before you own your business. So yeah.
I think that's a great one for people to listen to, isn't it? That you don't have to do everything, because actually you're never going to be good at everything.
This is it.
You're going to have your own personal strengths, aren't you,
Yeah.
that you go to,
Yeah.
and then you employ other people to do the other things and support you, because that's their strength.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there is someone else out there that is an expert in that specific field that can help you. But like I say, you have to have an overall know-how about it, so that you do stay in control. But there are always experts out there that you can hire for whatever you need.
Can you just describe what Platinum Dental Care looks like now in terms of the shape of it? How many surgeries have you got? What's the mix of clinicians and services that you offer to patients?
Yeah.
And what it looked like when you took it over.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is it. Well, first of all, I'm so grateful that it isn't just the most stunning building in Canary Wharf. There's very few buildings. It's in one of the old docks. So it has a very it's not like a normal dental practice. It doesn't have that clinical feel to it. And we took over, and it was just a 2-surgery practice at the time, with I think 2 surgeries, probably 5 days a week. Okay. That was probably running at around 80% capacity. And then we went through 2 refurbishments over a period of 2 to 3 years. And we transformed it into a 4-surgery practice. And now we're just a really busy 4-surgery practice, 6 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah. And the team is brilliant. We've grown the team. I've grown the team. Everyone who has, bought a practice or started their own practice understands that there is a lot of growth, with time, and you learn a lot. It's a steep learning curve along the way. But the team, we grew from, having 2 associates and a hygienist, and a very small front of house, well, only 1 practice manager and 2 nurses or 3 nurses, to now we have a team of 30 people. We're a multidisciplinary team, specialists, associates, fantastic DCPs, a great nursing team, and a great front of house and admin team as well.
I think Canary Wharf is one of those places that has evolved so much. When you think at one time it was busy. Well, one time it was empty, and then it came full of businesses. But what I think is fascinating about Docklands and Canary Wharf is the number of residentials that are now being built, which must be great. Which must be partly why you're 6 days. Because you've not just office people, are you?
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, it's amazing how it's evolved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that the patient demographic for me is just people like me. They're all young professionals. So, you really get to connect with them. They're easy to communicate with. I understand what they like, what they dislike, what they need, what they want in terms of service. And you're so right, Chris, it has completely transformed. So, like back in the 90s or even 80s, there wasn't anything there. And then you suddenly had Canary Wharf, that company that just built Canary Wharf and made it like the banking hub. And so then it was just very much commercial. And then, they started to realize, well, we've got all this land. What do we do with it? And they've had all these projects to build the residential. And strangely enough, because the banking side of things over the last 2 years, that started to make a bit of a shift. There's been a bit of a change with that as well. Yeah. And so now they're bringing in a lot of tech companies, a lot of not really healthcare companies, but like science-based companies, like pharma companies are coming in. So they're encouraging other companies, in other fields to come in, and they're making a lot of green spaces. So they've got a great vision, I think, for the
I think it's a great location. I think as how it's evolved from, as you say, from what it was to where it is now. And I think where it will continue to evolve into, because it's one of those amazing places. There's still quite a lot of space, isn't there?
There is, there is. I mean, but it's a tiny, everything is building upwards, if you know what I mean. And the lower part of the Docklands, that's all still very kind of old residential. So it's just got pockets of space and everything is so different. But you're right, go out on, to Canary Wharf on a Saturday and it's buzzing. You'd have to book a restaurant, to go out on a Friday or Saturday night.
Which is bonkers.
When you were describing
it's great, but bonkers, if you know.
Yeah, crazy. When you described your practice, Sarika, you were saying about DCPs. I know you're a huge fan of therapists and hygienists in practice.
Yes.
Is there a general misunderstanding inside the profession, which obviously also impacts on patient understanding, of the value that therapists bring to a practice? I think with hygienists, I think there's probably a better understanding of where hygienists sit. But have we still not found the right place to position therapists in dentistry?
Absolutely. And I really think it's a lack of awareness, if I'm being completely honest, Andy. And it's a lack of awareness of how working with a DCP and having a good relationship with a DCP can affect your business or grow your business. And by the way, I believe that when I talk about business, I don't mean being a practice principal. I believe that everyone is their own business. I mean, I include associates in this as well. And associates need to understand that they are their own business and that they are working in harmony with the practice. So they're working in partnership with the practice, but they're also growing their own business, and they need to switch their mindset a little bit around that. So it's not necessarily that principals need to work with a DCP. Associates can work with a DCP. And if that relationship is strong, both the DCP and the associate can grow. And I mean, financially grow as well. It just makes financial sense to work with a DCP, because that DCP is then taking away a lot of the direct restorative work and so many other things as well. If they're working within their full scope of practice, they can see patients for examinations, they can take x-rays, they can do so much. And if you let them work within their full scope of practice, imagine how much time that opens up in your diary to see those patients that need that higher level of work, or to do the work that you're passionate about. But I think that the limitation is that dentists are scared of making that move, because it's just the norm to just take all the patients, to see all the checkups, to see all the recalls and get everything into your diary. And we like seeing a busy book, right? But it's about, well, how productive is that book? How efficient are you with that book? And I think it's about people just seeing that, well, if this was my business, how productive is my business? How efficient is my business? How am I doing financially with my business? Am I limiting myself, potentially financially as well? And it's that switch in the mindset that I think a lot of people.
And like you say, that's business awareness, isn't it? About how do you maximize your efficiency, and also a little bit back to what you were saying before about, is there a better person to be doing the job? If you qualify in clinical dentistry, obsessing about the SEO on your website probably isn't good use of your time. Equally, as somebody who's got an MSc in restorative dentistry, the level of work that you can do will be different from a hygienist or therapist.
Yeah.
Therefore, using them for their skills just makes perfect sense. So it's getting everybody doing the right thing for how they're equipped and prepared for it.
I thought it was highlighted because I think we were all there at the latest Dentorama thing.
Yeah.
When that discussion about hygienists and therapists, which I did find quite entertaining, about the fact of, well, why are you just saying they can only do little treatments? It's almost like that sort of disparaging view, whereas actually what you're saying, which is quite right, is everybody should look at working together as a team. If you have a nurse, then you'll probably be more efficient. And as that lady pointed out, you should have one anyway. It's quite fascinating. I thought the whole thing was quite an interesting sort of like, okay.
Yeah, it's so true. But I'll tell you what as well, Andy, is that when you introduce a DCP into your practice, you've got to have a plan, and you've got to have a set number of a good enough number of new patients coming through the door as well. Okay. And I think where it doesn't work and where the anxiety comes in with associates or principals is when their books aren't as full with treatment. And then they have to ask themselves, well, is this because there is a flaw in my treatment planning, that I'm not treatment planning holistically or enough? Is there not enough new patients coming in? And I think that's when there is sometimes a break or a resistance to taking a DCP on. And the other point I just wanted to make is that for DCPs as well, it's really, I think for them, it's about them understanding that they're a business too. And that, you have to keep building that relationship. You can't give up. You've got to keep building your book, and you've got to ask for referrals, and you've got to showcase your work and do, use loops and the technology and take good photography, and have a portfolio. So I think it's about all those things coming together to make it all work.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, we started at the very beginning to talk about family and the importance of that and how they've set you up. Since buying your practice, you now have a child of your own. You're a mum, which is incredible. How did that change your outlook on business? To what extent did it impact? And this is kind of it's for men and women, but it's just just get your take on that. Is it an additional pressure? How do you kind of balance everything to make sure that you give everybody the attention they need?
Yeah, I get asked that question all the time. So my son is just he's a miracle child. I had IVF over 7 years to have him.
Wow.
And I was having IVF.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty stressful as well.
It was.
Hey,
and
why don't we add the buying a practice, evolving it, and IVF? Excellent.
Yeah, this is it. And it started prior to us buying the practice. I realized one thing: everything just clashes. Everything clashes. I mean, for a woman, there's a big clash in her career and her biology. There's a big clash, and I think if we just accept that look, it is going to clash, but you can do it. It's just about putting certain things in place, and it is possible. And any hard times are not forever. It's always transient. And that's the mindset that I've always had. So, IVF was happening. It was like, always, when it happens, it happens. But I learned a lot about my self-leadership, my personal leadership, my self-development journey, my stress management, my time management. So I was stacking those skills as I was going through IVF. Just to stay positive, and just to keep growing, not just clinically as a dentist, because I just finished my MSc a few years before that, and I was like enjoying my clinical dentistry and the cases I was taking on. But then the whole idea about should we buy a practice, and that journey started. So I had my son in 2020 during COVID, and it was just about, to be honest with you, it's about time management. It's about asking for help. Okay, it's really, we're so isolated as dentists and as practice principals that we don't ask for help. We think we have all the answers, and there isn't many people to go to, but it's about finding your tribe and finding, the right people in the right community that you can ask for help. And there's no shame in asking for help. And it's also that I don't have the answer to everything. I don't need to answer everything today. I don't need to do everything today, and it's about prioritizing what needs to be done, and when. And delegation. I was like a control freak and a micromanager when I first took over the practice, because it was like my first baby. I had my practice before I had my son, so it was my first baby. It was literally pooping on us every day. It was keeping us up at night every single day, and it was like a child. It was like managing like a young baby. So yeah, and enjoying the journey. Like motherhood is difficult. Going through pregnancy and birth and all that is difficult as well, but it's about enjoying the journey. And I think my message to women is always that when you have these things put in place, when you have strong inner leadership, and you can really have awareness and control over your emotion, you're emotionally intelligent, of your thoughts, and your actions, and you have clarity on your goals, and you have a great community around you, you're set in the right environment. When you create all those things around you, then your growth will happen organically. It will happen for you. You don't yes, you have to work hard and you have to put things in place, but opportunities will come your way. And it's about not limiting yourself to those opportunities and seeing them, that it is there, and it's now my choice whether I want to take it or not.
Wow.
And if you haven't got enough on your plate, this year you then started Flourish as a Female as well, which I'm guessing, based on what you just said about owning your business, being a mum, having a husband, managing all those different priorities and spinning those plates. Was that kind of, did this new venture come out of your own experience?
Yes, and all of it, and I think also, just some of the barriers that face as a female in dentistry, it being such a male dominated field, and there was so many biases that I faced as well, in my career. So I think bringing all that together, and I climbed Kilimanjaro. I summited Kilimanjaro last year, which was a highlight of 2023. And one of the things that happened on that journey was that I felt, prior to climbing Kilimanjaro, I felt like I was missing something. I felt I was missing something to do with my purpose, and that I'd achieved so much. But you get to that point in your life, you're like, am I really fulfilled? Is this really my purpose? Can I be giving back to the world a little bit more? And then I came. Kilimanjaro did that for me. I got that aha moment up there. And when I came down, I said to Rishi, I know what I need to do, kind of. And I want to set something up for women, because nothing like this exists. Nothing like this exists, where there is this, there is a course for women that is out there, but not even that. I'm a certified mindset and performance coach as well, where you're getting coaching, you're getting guiding, you're getting you're getting information, strategies about leadership, about self-leadership first, because that for me is the most important thing before you go out there and you lead other people. And I mean, lead your surgery, lead your practice, lead your home. We're leading everywhere, so it's about having that understanding and how effectively can we do that. And then a bit more about the self-development side of things, but also the business side of things as well. There is, there's very little female to female guide, mentoring, coaching on business. And what is it that you need to put in place? How do you manage being a mom, or even a wife and having a business, or, whatever it's going to be? How do we manage our time?
And there are more women practice owners now. We see that there's a big change.
There are. Yeah. But it's the trend is starting. It's still very slow, and there are still a lot of women that are hesitant, owning a practice, because it is difficult. It's difficult as a woman on your own to start something new when you don't have the know-how, the knowledge, the mentorship. You don't have someone there to speak to when you need the help, and it can be on the silliest little things. But if you don't have that network, that's an open network as well, by the way. There's lots of female to female networks, but they're not necessarily open where you can just go in there and ask anything that you want. There's a few, but there isn't enough. And that was really my purpose, is that I wanted to create impact for women in dentistry, and give them this course, which is basically helping them and guiding them through their leadership, inner leadership, but also the outer leadership, and all the other aspects of how they can really create their success as a female in dentistry.
Flint,
very
what
cool.
did you do to relax?
What do I do to relax?
Yeah,
Oh my
because
gosh.
I'm sort of exhausted in a way.
You
I'm
know
thinking,
what?
flip. What does this woman do?
Oh,
She's up. She's got a baby. She's got a husband. She runs a business. Oh, and she's doing this thing, and she's a business mindset coach and a business coach. So I'm thinking, so when do you have like downtime?
yeah.
And what is your downtime? Is it a cup of tea and a book, or is it a cup of tea and TV, or is it a cup of tea and playing with your son? I don't know. Or is it a beer?
Yeah. You know what? A bit of everything. But I'll tell you what as well is rest is extremely important to me. Extremely important. It's actually what I call one of my non-negotiables. Because it's
Okay.
really important that you don't go all the time. And I have that in my
Yeah,
personality. I've
don't
got
burn out.
that
Yeah.
in my blood to, to grow all the
Really?
time.
I can't say I've noticed.
And I give a lot of my energy to other people, but it's really important, I think, that I have energy for myself, and to
Right.
regenerate, to have the energy for my own thoughts, for my own goals. So actually, rest for me is really important, and I think I learned this because I've been through 2 burnouts in the past,
Oh, really?
and I really learned from that, how to manage my stress. And again, this comes from the self leadership that I've learned
Yeah.
about time management, and about prioritization. And I do prioritize time out in my day. I love exercising. So I think that, like you said, is that, time for yourself is different for different people.
Mm.
And you do it in a different way. So I like going out for walks. I love exercising. I really like let out a lot of energy in the gym, and running, and things like that as well. But also spending time with family, and just meditation, and just having just some
I
peaceful
was going
time
to
for
say,
myself.
do you do yoga or something like that?
Yeah,
So as you can
yoga,
sort of like a bit of
meditation. But I tell you what,
center.
I love taking holidays. I need my time out on a holiday
Go for it,
because
girl.
I need like just a day or two just to get that brain, mind, body detox, just
Right.
24 to 48 hours, and just to reset. So for me, is really, really important.
We haven't really got time, but I tell you what, I love the fact that you just snuck in 2 burnouts.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's that thing, isn't it? What I think is for our listeners is brilliant in the fact of we've had your positivity and your story, but in that were 2 burnouts, but you've turned it round, and you've come out of that. So I'm sort of thinking, hey guys, if you want to have a chat with Sarika, you know where she is.
Exactly.
She's walked the walk and talked the talk by the sounds of things.
This is it.
Exactly right.
The whole experience. I've experienced it all.
Yeah, flip, yeah. What else can we throw on you?
There's no shortage of experience in there.
No, it's
Sarika,
true.
though, we have got to the time when we have to ask you a couple of quite serious questions.
Yeah.
The first one is, if you could be a fly on a wall in a situation, where would you be and who would be there, given the chance?
So if I could be a fly on a wall, I wouldn't be on the wall. I think I'd be that annoying fly that like goes around someone's head or sits on their shoulder. I think it would be, I'm not going to name anyone specific because I have too many people I love and too many powerful females that I love, but it would be someone pretty powerful, like a CEO of a company, and I would love to just follow them around, and I'd love to see how they're communicating with all the different teams in their business, because I think that the way we have to communicate now in dentistry has evolved a lot, and the way we communicate with one team is very different with another. So I'd like to just follow them around and see, well, actually, if they're on the floor, on the manufacturing floor, how do they communicate with the team on the manufacturing floor? And if they were then in a boardroom meeting as a female in a high position, how would they then, in a male-dominated field, how would they then communicate in that kind of environment? So I would very much, I would very much like to, just follow as many powerful women as possible and be the annoying fly in their
quite
corner.
often it is those small details, isn't it? It's the very subtle differences between communicating with different audiences, but still being authentic. We're just adjusting slightly depending on who it is you're talking to.
Phrasing and phraseology.
I think what I'd want to observe, and you really hit the nail on the head, Andy, is about authenticity to me is so important. I think more now that I understand me and who I am, that I'm not afraid to be authentic. And I would love to see that actually, do they need to change to then achieve what they need to in that moment, or long term or short term, or are they actually being really authentic? And what is it that people buy into them? How are people buying into them? So I think this is like, you've got few people in this world that have just nailed it when it comes down to that, and they have fans of everyone around them is a fan. And I think that I want to learn what is their secret, and I want to learn how to do that.
That's great. And if you could meet somebody, who would you meet given the opportunity?
Living or dead?
Gosh,
sit down, have a pint of beer with them.
Fact or fiction, in fact, as we always say.
Do you know what? I'm going to be a bit cheesy. I'm going to be really cheesy, and I'm going to say Beyonce. I'm going to say Beyonce.
That's okay.
Because no one ever picks pop singer. So I've got that. I've given you the serious answer.
This is the sassy woman, obviously.
Because, again, this is someone who is, who's super hardworking, had great influence from a childhood, from a parent, and soaked it all in. But she had talent. She works hard on that talent. It's not that yes, you've got something natural, and I think you can naturally be good at dentistry as well, but it's about working hard to then really propel yourself forward onto that next level. And she's someone that has done that, and she really has a good understanding of people. Her secret is she understands people, and she understands the importance of relationship building, whether it's with her fans, whether it's within her business. She is a really excellent businesswoman as well. And yes, she's in partnership with another excellent businessman, but I think that we have to give women credit where it's due, and sometimes that's not always out there in the press, and it's not always publicized. But actually, if you look into her life and what she's built, a lot of it has come down to her hard work that isn't always recognized. So yeah, I'd want to meet her, because she's like the queen. She's Beyonce.
Sarika, it's been wonderful. Thank you very much.
I was trying to think of a Beyonce song to finish that off with, but I was struggling for a title.
So we must let you go, because you're heading back to the very beginning of our conversation to go and see family in Kenya. So have a wonderful time with them.
Thank you.
If you could let us have a link for your new venture, we'll drop that in the guest notes as well. Definitely. So if people want to reach out to you, they can get in touch. They might have some questions and bits and pieces.
Absolutely.
But no, failing that, look forward to seeing you at an event at some time soon.
Yes, absolutely. It's been such a pleasure, both of you. Thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
No, not at all. Thank you, Sarika. It's been really good. Thank you very much indeed. Keep well.
Thank you. Have a lovely holiday and a good Christmas.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.